Driver etiquette. That has been sort of the name of the game for the last few days after the 2025 U.S. Marine Corps 250. A badass name for a race that was both bad and ass, but not combined in any way. It was pretty bad at the end. It was pretty bad in the middle. It was just downright terrible. And the driver etiquette has been awful for the last couple of years when you look in comparison in years past. Obviously, it's NASCAR. Things are always going to be a little sloppy, but you have to admit that the last couple of years in trucks and Xfinity both, there have been some doozies. And this one, I think, might be one of the worst examples we've seen in Xfinity probably ever. So I wanted to kind of look a little bit at this, both at what Sammy Smith did at the end, where he pretty much destroyed the field, destroyed Taylor Gray after, in my opinion, he really raced him pretty clean and he didn't have to. And then also just other guys just running through each other. The fact that you have young drivers now who say legitimately they just hate Martinsville Speedway, which is somebody who is a Martinsville truther, loves this track, everything like that. Hard for me to hear. And with that, it obviously pissed most of us off. Everyone was talking about it, from Kevin Harvick, Boyer, and also Mike Joy in the booth to people like me, other YouTubers, other people on X, Facebook, Reddit, you name it. Everyone was talking about this. You brought us all together, Sammy and Xfinity guys. You brought us all together. But the thing for me is that this is not something that's shocking. This is something that I think we all kind of expected to happen at some point, whether it be this series, trucks, cup, you name it. And that's the problem, because I think we've had a poster child for this for a while. The 2023 Phoenix truck finale in the also Austin Dillon 2024 Richmond fiasco were two things that we saw in so many ways that just brought this all to a head. And really nothing was done other than a few small things and penalties in the grand scheme of things. And that's the problem. Is that we've seen this and us fans feel like nothing is being done. And I kind of want to go through what are the solutions that we could have to this, and also what stem this problem. Let's start with the cause before we get to how we can fix the effect. The first reason given by many was pay drivers. And I get this. A lot of drivers nowadays have to come up with money. Why? Because this sport's expensive and it's really, really hard for a lot of people to get up there just off their own merit. It's why the Josh Berry story, even with help from Dale Earnhardt Jr., is actually something that is amazing when you look at the grand scheme of things. But then there's also some other people, though, who have been pushing back against this and shown that, yeah, this is why it is the way it is, but there's nothing that can be done. Kyle Busch had a lot of statements with Kevin Harvick last week about this. And coincidentally enough, we have seen this come all to fruition in the last weekend. And with that too, NASCAR allows a lot of it. And that's the second part for me. That is the second part when I see what caused this. NASCAR in any various way has let this happen as a sanctioning body, especially in this kind of new era with new people running the show. A lot of them seem to not really carry the weight of handing down a penalty, or maybe the weight is too much for them and somebody else needs to be up there. But they've been very lax when you look at how NASCAR has been in the past. Look back into the 2000s, the 90s, the 80s. Yes, we talk about rough and tumble, beating and banging, short track racing, but we also have seen a lot of different penalties for drivers being too rough in the past. And you don't see that as much anymore, or you don't see it in a quick manner anymore. So drivers basically dare NASCAR to go against them. Now, with the lower series, this part is definitely pertinent. There are no vets at this time, really, that are in these series to kind of put their foot down and kind of smack somebody into shape. And this is not me advocating for bushwhacking. A lot of people I've seen have been advocating to let the Cup guys just floodgates open up and go into the Xfinity and Truck Series again. I don't think that's the right call. I think the way they do it now is actually kind of the perfect way of doing it. But I do think that in some ways, Some of the older and veteran drivers need to keep putting their foot down and stepping up. A lot of them seem to just have a, well, I can't fix it, so it's somebody else's problem effect. And to me, I just think that that is a really dumb way of going about it, and they can pull their weight a lot more. And they failed a lot of these younger drivers in doing so, even if they don't listen as much in the moment. Look at all the guys who have retired: Gordon, Stewart, Johnson, Earnhardt, all of these guys, Matt Kenseth, Carl Edwards, a lot of these guys, their voices held weight with the younger drivers. Now you don't have them. And a lot of the older drivers in there now are not as respected as those guys are and were. But I think the biggest cause of all of this, I know people are going to roll their eyes, they're going to say, oh, I'm just on a vendetta about this. But the biggest part of all of this is the NASCAR playoffs. The NASCAR playoffs to me are just, there's so many things I think that are wrong with them in so many different ways. But I think that a big part of what the NASCAR playoffs have brought on is a huge cultural shift in NASCAR. NASCAR fans for the longest time bitched and moaned and said how much they hated a good points day. Good points day was the big thing that everyone hated. Every driver would say it, and every fan hated hearing it when their driver lost. But now you've completely shifted the pendulum over to where winning means all. And they basically turned a Ricky Bobby quote into a way of life. And that's not a way to run a racing series. Every position matters. But NASCAR, in making the big changes they have changed how these drivers are, how desperate they are. And they've not only had it in the Cup Series, but they've had it in Xfinity and trucks. And I think if they had enough good cars, they'd do it in ARCA. And this is something that I think is the main cause of all of it, and has made pay drivers, has made NASCAR being lax, and has made no veteran authorities make that all that much more prevalent in this. When you basically can go out and wreck somebody or move somebody out of the way into the wall after they raced you cleanly and there's no repercussions, you're basically incentivized to do it. And that's where a lot of these young drivers are now. They don't know any different. If you look at some of these drivers, they're 19, 20, 21 years old. And when the NASCAR playoffs were implemented, they were 9, 10, 11 years old. This is all they've known in the top series of NASCAR. So in a large way, why should they even maybe have the net blame on all of it? It might just fall onto NASCAR's shoulders still. But of course, complaining about the causes and the problems and not seeing how we can fix the effects is not conducive to anything good. So what are the solutions? Well, I have a couple here I wanted to look at. First off, one from Brad Keselowski. Keselowski said on X that he thinks the owners should have the onus to do basically the incentivizing of not being an idiot, because that's what a lot of these guys are being, complete idiots. And I think to a degree, they do have a bit of responsibility for that. I'll say this: if Dale Earnhardt Jr. does not basically sit Sammy Smith down and tell him why he's an idiot and why he's wasting his money, and maybe even call him out in the Dale Jr. download, I think Dale's doing a disservice to Sammy Smith's career. I think that you need somebody with a big voice, even an owner, somebody who's supposed to have your back, put you on blast, whether in private or in public. I would like more in public because I think that gets the point across and more fans see it and more fans might start calling it out because Dale Jr. has a huge ass voice in this sport. But that's not the only way to go about it either. The team owners, I think, are stuck into a box because of a couple things. Another one with the playoffs here, because of the way that the waivers are put out now. If a team suspends a driver, I don't think they get a waiver. So they're automatically taken out of the playoff fight after, at this point now, 7 weeks for the Xfinity guys. But on the other end of it, if they do kind of crack the whip down, don't suspend them, but maybe, I don't know, take the money out of their contract for the car that they crashed, or the cars that they crashed, depending on if multiple from that team are involved, well, then their sponsor might say, you know what, screw you. I'm going to take my Nepo baby elsewhere where they're not going to penalize me more for it. So the teams are in a box here because of the business model and because of the rules at play. So the other one is that NASCAR gets strict. And I know a lot of fans aren't going to like this. I know we're going to call it out. I'm going to call it out probably at some point if this happens, but NASCAR probably does need to get more strict on the penalties, or at least call penalties during the race or in a very timely manner if it's at the end of the race and all they have is the post race to do it. I think that maybe moving people to the back if they have too many incidents might be a big part of it. If you continuously cause crashes, you shouldn't be basically earning out of it. You're basically earning some great track position because you just drove through everybody, and that's not something that's conducive to a functioning and real sport. And I think that that might be a way to do it. Something like Sammy Smith, maybe points penalties more often, maybe putting them all the way back to last in the finishing order, maybe taking all their playoff points away, whatever it might be in the current model. That might be the way that you have to do it, unfortunately. And we're going to hate it as fans because we've been conditioned with boys have at it for so long. But if you look, ever since NASCAR basically allowed boys have at it, the etiquette deteriorated a bit. And then the playoffs, I think, accelerated it. You have to have not only the playoff fix, which I think is a big fix that could help this, but you also need real incentives for clean racing, good racing on top of that. It has to be a bunch of small events leading to one big solution. Overall, though, I don't think this goes away. I know Cup and Trucks have been a bit more clean so far this year, but it's early and they have plenty of time to screw up. I think this is a cultural problem, and NASCAR is going to have to probably take the better part of a decade or so to fix it. And it's going to be a painful and long and slow process, but it needs to be done. So this has all been brewing for a while. I think there's needed to be a cultural cleanse in NASCAR for the driving etiquette for a while, and finally, maybe it might be addressed. So now I kind of want to push it over to you. I've given my thoughts on the causes, effects, and solutions. Now I want to know what you think. What do you think caused this? What do you think the solutions are? Let me know all of it down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great and fun NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. And until next time, have a good one.